Technical breakdown of the $100 million settlement agreement with Meta, analysis of regulatory compliance measures and implementation timeline through Q1 2024. Introduction. In January 2025, Meta Platforms Incorporated, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, announced a significant settlement agreement of $25 million related to a lawsuit filed by former President Donald Trump. This legal action followed the suspension of Trump's social media accounts after the January 6 Capitol attack in 2021. The settlement not only highlights the ongoing tensions between political figures and major tech companies but also underscores the complexities of regulatory compliance in a highly polarized environment. Background of the lawsuit. The roots of this lawsuit can be traced back to the events of January 6, 2021, when a violent mob stormed the U.S. Capitol. In response to Trump's encouragement of this insurrection, Meta suspended his accounts, citing a violation of its policies against inciting violence. Trump, asserting that this action constituted illegal censorship, filed a lawsuit against Meta, arguing that the company abused its power under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. This section typically protects online platforms from liability for user-generated content, allowing them to moderate content in good faith. Trump's legal argument hinged on the assertion that Meta's actions were not in good faith and represented a form of censorship that stifled free speech. The lawsuit is part of a broader narrative where Trump has frequently engaged in litigation against media entities and tech companies, claiming they unfairly target him and his allies. Settlement details. The settlement agreement reached in January 2025 includes a financial commitment of $25 million from Meta. Notably, out of this amount, $22 million is designated for a nonprofit organization connected to Trump's future presidential library. The remaining funds are allocated for legal fees and other expenses related to the litigation. This allocation of funds demonstrates Meta's strategy to navigate the intricate relationship between business interests and political dynamics. According to sources close to the negotiations, the discussions leading to the settlement were initiated during a meeting between Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg and Trump in November 2024. This meeting was intended to foster goodwill and mend relations between Meta and the incoming Trump administration, reflecting a conscious effort on the part of Meta to align itself with influential political figures. Meta's broader strategy. The settlement with Trump is part of a larger strategy employed by Meta to reconcile with political leaders and enhance its public image. This approach has included various conciliatory actions, such as Zuckerberg's visit to Trump, where they discussed the lawsuit and potential resolutions. The willingness of Meta to engage in such negotiations signals the company's recognition of the importance of maintaining favorable relations with key political players. Moreover, Meta's decision to make a $1 million donation to Trump's inaugural committee further illustrates its efforts to ingratiate itself with the new administration, a move that reflects the interconnected nature of politics and business in the current landscape. Context of political relations. The settlement underscores the growing entanglement between tech companies and political disputes. The actions of Meta and other social media platforms have come under intense scrutiny, leading to calls from various political figures, including Trump, to re-evaluate the protections offered under Section 230. Trump and his allies have long argued that platforms like Meta and Twitter have abused their immunity to engage in political censorship, thus advocating for modifications to this long-standing legal framework. This lawsuit and subsequent settlement are emblematic of a broader trend where tech companies are increasingly drawn into political controversies, often finding themselves at the intersection of public sentiment, regulatory scrutiny, and political accountability. Timeline of events. 1. January 6, 2021. The Capitol attack occurs, leading to Meta's suspension of Trump's accounts. 2. Post-January 2021, Trump files a lawsuit against Meta claiming illegal censorship. 3. November 2024, Zuckerberg visits Trump in Florida to discuss the lawsuit and explore a potential resolution. 4. January 2025, Meta announces the settlement agreement outlining the payment structure and intended use of funds. Regulatory compliance measures. The complexities surrounding the settlement necessitate a robust analysis of Meta's regulatory compliance measures, particularly in light of the evolving political landscape. As the company navigates this environment, several compliance measures will be critical. 1. Review of content moderation policies. Meta must reassess its content moderation policies to ensure they align with both legal standards and public expectations. This includes a thorough evaluation of how decisions are made regarding account suspensions and content removals. 2. Enhancing transparency. In response to criticisms of censorship, Meta is likely to implement measures aimed at increasing transparency regarding its moderation practices, including clearer communication about the reasons for account suspensions and the appeals process available to users. 3. Engagement with stakeholders. Building relationships with political figures and regulatory bodies will be essential for Meta. This includes ongoing dialogue with lawmakers to address concerns regarding censorship and to advocate for policies that protect free speech while also holding platforms accountable. 4. Compliance training. As part of its commitment to compliance, Meta may introduce training programs for its employees focused on navigating the legal complexities of content moderation and political engagement. Implementation timeline through Q1 2024. As Meta begins to implement these regulatory compliance measures, a clear timeline will be crucial for tracking progress and ensuring accountability. Q2 2025. Initiate a comprehensive review of existing content moderation policies and practices with input from legal experts and external stakeholders. Q3 2025. Launch initiatives aimed at increasing transparency in content moderation, including the publication of regular reports detailing account suspensions and the rationale behind them. Q4 2025. Develop a stakeholder engagement strategy encompassing outreach to political leaders, regulatory agencies, and civil society organizations to foster dialogue and address concerns related to censorship. Q1 2026. Assess the effectiveness of the implemented compliance measures through internal audits and feedback from users, with adjustments made as necessary to enhance the company's approach. Conclusion. The $25 million settlement agreement between Meta and Donald Trump serves as a critical case study in the evolving relationship between technology companies and political figures. As Meta navigates the complexities of regulatory compliance in a polarized political environment, the implementation of strategic measures will be vital for maintaining its reputation and operational integrity. The timeline for these measures extends into Q1 2026, reflecting the ongoing challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for Meta as it seeks to balance business interests with the demands of an increasingly scrutinizing public and political landscape. Ultimately, this settlement exemplifies the intricate dynamics at play in the intersection of technology law and politics, with implications that will resonate throughout the tech industry and beyond. The $25 million settlement agreement between Meta Platforms Incorporated and former President Donald Trump has sparked significant discussion in the realm of corporate governance, regulatory compliance, and the interplay between political figures and technology companies. While the details of the settlement might seem straightforward, several counterintuitive aspects emerge from the analysis of this case. 1. Settlement amount versus legal strategy. At first glance, a $25 million payout for a high-profile lawsuit involving a former president appears substantial. However, the amount is relatively minor compared to the potential financial and reputational damages Meta could face if the lawsuit had escalated. This suggests a calculated decision by Meta, opting for a quick resolution to prevent further negative publicity and potential legal costs that could far exceed the settlement amount. The counterintuitive aspect here lies in the notion that sometimes settling for a seemingly high amount is a strategic move to avoid even greater liabilities. 2. Political favor versus corporate integrity. Meta's decision to allocate $22 million of the settlement to a nonprofit associated with Trump's future presidential library can be interpreted as a move to curry favor with a significant political figure. This raises questions about corporate integrity and the ethical implications of such financial support. It is counterintuitive to think that a technology company often viewed as a bastion of progressive values would align itself so closely with a figure like Trump, who has repeatedly criticized these companies. It demonstrates a willingness to navigate murky political waters for the sake of business stability. 3. Section 230 and censorship claims. Trump's claims of illegal censorship by Meta rest on interpretations of Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. This law is meant to protect platforms from liability for user-generated content while allowing them to moderate that content. The counterintuitive element here is that Trump's lawsuit could be seen as an effort to undermine the very protections that allow his own social media presence. By arguing against what he perceives as censorship, he inadvertently challenges the framework that enables platforms to operate freely, potentially leading to stricter regulations that could harm his interests and those of other users. 4. Meta's broader strategy of reconciliation. The timing of Zuckerberg's visit to Trump and the subsequent settlement highlights a broader strategy of reconciliation between tech giants and political figures. This is counterintuitive because one might expect companies like Meta to distance themselves from contentious political figures, especially following public backlash against their policies. Instead, Meta's approach indicates a recognition that maintaining relationships with influential political leaders may be essential for future regulatory navigation and corporate growth despite the potential backlash from their user base. 5. The role of nonprofits in political settlements. Allocating a significant portion of the settlement to a nonprofit linked to Trump's presidential library introduces a complex dynamic regarding corporate donations and political influence. While it may seem that this is merely a charitable gesture, it raises concerns about the implications of corporate money in politics. The counterintuitive takeaway is that such settlements might not just resolve legal disputes but also serve as strategic investments in political capital, allowing corporations to maintain a favorable position within political circles. 6. Public perception and backlash. Despite the strategic nature of the settlement, there may be significant public backlash against Meta for its perceived alignment with Trump. This presents a counterintuitive scenario where a company attempts to secure its interests through political ties but risks alienating a substantial segment of its user base that may oppose Trump's policies and rhetoric. The challenge for Meta will be to balance these competing interests without damaging its brand reputation further. 7. Implications for future litigation. The settlement could set a precedent for future litigation involving tech companies and political figures. If other political figures view this outcome as a successful strategy for challenging tech giants, it may lead to a surge in similar lawsuits, countering the initial expectation that such high-profile cases would be deterred by Meta's costly settlement. This creates an unexpected scenario where a resolution meant to quell legal disputes might instead embolden further conflict. In conclusion, the $25 million settlement between Meta and Trump encapsulates a range of counterintuitive dynamics in the intersection of politics and corporate governance. Meta's decision-making reflects a strategic approach to navigating a complex landscape of legal, ethical, and reputational considerations, illustrating how large corporations must often adapt their strategies in response to the unpredictable nature of political relations and public sentiment. The $100 million settlement agreement between Meta Platforms Incorporated and Donald Trump represents a complex intersection of legal, political, and corporate dynamics that many may overlook. Here are several key elements of the report that are significant yet might be understated in typical analyses. 1. Strategic allocation of settlement funds. The settlement allocates $22 million to a nonprofit associated with Trump's presidential library. This financial decision is more than just a payment, it is a strategic move that serves to legitimize Trump's political narrative and bolster his future endeavors. By supporting Trump's library, Meta may be attempting to curry favor with a significant political figure and his base, thus mitigating potential regulatory backlash or public relations fallout. This aspect reveals how corporations can influence political landscapes through financial contributions and highlights the delicate balance of power between tech giants and political figures. 2. Implications of Section 230. The lawsuit's focus on Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act is crucial. Trump's claims of illegal censorship challenge the established legal protections that allow social media companies to moderate content without facing liability. The outcome of this case could set a precedent for how social media platforms operate moving forward, potentially reshaping the regulatory framework surrounding online speech. This ongoing battle indicates a significant shift in the broader legal environment, as tech companies may face increased scrutiny and pressure to modify their content moderation policies. 3. Meta's broader political strategy. Mark Zuckerberg's visit to Trump indicates a calculated effort by Meta to rebuild relationships with political leaders. This move is significant as it reflects a trend where major tech corporations seek to align themselves with political power to preemptively address potential regulatory challenges. The interaction highlights the necessity for corporations to engage in political diplomacy, underscoring the intertwined nature of technology politics and governance in the modern landscape. 4. Historical context of litigation against media. Trump's litigious history against media outlets signals a broader strategy to combat perceived bias and reclaim narrative control. The settlement with Meta fits into a pattern of legal actions that Trump has pursued against various platforms and media entities. This context is significant as it illustrates a relentless pursuit of accountability from media and tech companies which he alleges have unfairly targeted him. Understanding this historical context helps to frame the settlement as part of a larger battle over media representation and freedom of expression in an increasingly polarized environment. 5. Regulatory compliance considerations. The settlement and the surrounding controversy underscore the importance of regulatory compliance for corporations, as Meta navigates this legal landscape. The scrutiny it faces from regulators and the public it may embolden Trump to pursue additional lawsuits against other media companies or platforms that he perceives as antagonistic. This potential for further legal action could lead to an escalating cycle of litigation that impacts how companies interact with political figures and manage public relations crises. 7. Impact on public perception. The handling of this settlement may affect public perception of Meta. While some may view the settlement as a necessary compromise, others might interpret it as an admission of guilt or a capitulation to political pressure. The dual nature of public relations in this context means that Meta's image could either improve through perceived cooperation with Trump's administration or deteriorate due to accusations of yielding to political influence. This dynamic illustrates the fragility of corporate reputation in the face of political machinations. 8. Cultural and societal implications. Finally, the settlement reflects broader cultural and societal tensions surrounding free speech, censorship, and the role of technology in political discourse. As companies like Meta navigate these issues, they do not only contend with legal implications but also with the societal expectations that come with their platform's influence on public dialogue. The cultural ramifications of this settlement speak to a larger conversation about the responsibilities of tech companies in shaping democratic discourse. In conclusion, the $100 million settlement between Meta and Donald Trump is not merely a financial agreement, it represents a crucial moment in the ongoing negotiation between technology politics and public accountability. The strategic decisions made by Meta, the implications of regulatory challenges, and the cultural context of these interactions are significant elements that deserve greater attention, as they will likely shape the future landscape of both corporate governance and political engagement in the digital age. Understanding these nuances allows for a more comprehensive view of the evolving relationship between major corporations and political figures, highlighting the complexities that define modern governance and public discourse. 1. Legal context and implications of Section 230. The lawsuit filed by Donald Trump against Meta highlights the ongoing debate surrounding Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, which provides immunity to social media platforms for user-generated content. Trump's claim that Meta's suspension of his accounts constituted illegal censorship raises crucial questions about the limits of this legal protection. Understanding the implications of such legal precedents is vital for both tech companies and regulatory bodies as they navigate the complexities of content moderation censorship claims and the balance between free speech and platform responsibility. 2. Financial allocation of the settlement. The settlement agreement, particularly the allocation of $22 million towards Trump's future presidential library, underscores the strategic financial decisions made by Meta. This allocation serves not only as a resolution to the legal dispute but also as a means to manage corporate reputation amidst a politically charged environment. Analyzing the motivations behind such financial arrangements can provide insights into how corporations engage with political figures and organizations, potentially influencing public perception and stakeholder relationships. 3. Meta's political strategy and relationship management. The settlement is part of a broader strategy by Meta and its CEO Mark Zuckerberg to re-establish relationships with influential political figures. Zuckerberg's visit to Trump and the subsequent negotiations demonstrate the lengths to which large tech companies may go to align themselves with political stakeholders. This dynamic raises questions about the ethical implications of such corporate actions, particularly when they intersect with political influence and regulatory compliance. Exploring the effects of these strategies on corporate governance and public trust in tech companies is essential. For impact on corporate governance and regulatory compliance, the settlement agreement illustrates the complexities of corporate governance in an era where tech companies are increasingly scrutinized for their political roles and responsibilities. As Meta implements compliance measures in response to the settlement, stakeholders will be closely monitoring the effectiveness and transparency of these measures. The evolving relationship between tech giants and regulatory bodies, particularly in a polarized political climate, suggests a need for ongoing dialogue about accountability, compliance, and the future of digital communication platforms. Analyzing these trends will be crucial for understanding the regulatory landscape moving forward. 1. The Microsoft antitrust case 1998-2001. This case involved the U.S. Department of Justice and several states filing an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft Corporation, alleging that it engaged in anti-competitive practices to maintain its monopoly on personal computer operating systems. The litigation centered on Microsoft's bundling of its Internet Explorer browser with the Windows operating system, effectively stifling competition from other web browsers. In 2000, a federal judge ruled that Microsoft had violated antitrust laws, leading to a settlement in 2001 that imposed various restrictions on Microsoft's business practices, including the requirement to share its application programming interfaces APIs with third-party companies. This case is notable for its implications on corporate regulation and competition policy in the tech industry. 2. The Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement 1998. This landmark settlement was reached between the four largest tobacco companies in the United States and 46 states, resolving lawsuits aimed at recovering healthcare costs associated with smoking-related illnesses. The agreement required the tobacco companies to pay an estimated $206 billion over 25 years, with funds designated for healthcare anti-smoking campaigns and other public health initiatives. Additionally, the settlement imposed restrictions on advertising and marketing practices, particularly those targeting children. The Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement is significant as it marked a major regulatory shift in the tobacco industry and set a precedent for future litigation involving public health and corporate accountability. 3. the Enron scandal and subsequent settlements 2001 to 2005. Enron Corporation's bankruptcy in 2001 was one of the largest in U.S. history and was attributed to widespread accounting fraud and corporate malfeasance. Following the scandal, several lawsuits were filed against Enron's executives and its accounting firm Arthur Andersen. The resulting settlements involved billions in payments to shareholders and employees who lost their investments and retirement savings. The fallout from the Enron scandal led to significant regulatory changes, including the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002, which aimed to improve corporate governance and financial disclosures. The Enron case is a key example of the consequences of corporate fraud and the necessity for regulatory compliance in the financial sector. The $100 million settlement agreement between Meta Platforms Incorporated and former President Donald Trump represents a significant moment in the intersection of technology, politics, and legal frameworks. As we look toward the future, particularly through the lens of regulatory compliance measures and their implementation timeline through Q1 2024, several predictions can be made regarding the implications of this agreement and the broader landscape it reflects. Predictions for the future outlook. 1. Increased regulatory scrutiny of tech giants. The settlement underscores the ongoing scrutiny that tech companies face regarding their moderation practices and their responsibilities under laws like Section 230. As political and legal tensions escalate, regulatory bodies are likely to implement stricter guidelines for content moderation. We can expect more comprehensive legislation aimed at holding social media companies accountable for perceived biases in content moderation, potentially leading to a re-evaluation of Section 230 protections. 2. Shifting corporate governance strategies. Meta's decision to settle, especially with a significant portion of the funds allocated to Trump's presidential library, indicates a strategic pivot toward managing corporate reputation in a politically charged environment. Future corporate governance strategies will likely involve more proactive engagement with political figures and organizations to mitigate risks associated with reputational damage and legal challenges. Companies may invest in lobbying efforts and form alliances with key stakeholders to navigate this complex landscape. 3. Heightened political polarization. The settlement reflects the deepening political polarization in the U.S., particularly concerning the role of social media in political discourse. As tech companies continue to take sides, either by supporting or opposing specific political figures, we can expect an uptick in litigation from various political factions. This polarization will likely complicate compliance measures, as companies will need to balance legal obligations with public sentiment and political pressures. 4. Emergence of precedents in content moderation cases. The outcome of this case may set legal precedents for future lawsuits involving social media companies and public figures. As more individuals seek legal recourse against platforms for moderation decisions, the legal landscape surrounding content moderation will evolve. Courts may be required to delineate the boundaries of acceptable moderation practices, potentially leading to new interpretations of existing laws that govern online speech. 5. Implementation of enhanced compliance measures. As part of the settlement, Meta and other tech companies will likely enhance their compliance measures to avoid similar disputes in the future. This may include the development of more transparent content moderation policies, regular audits of moderation practices, and staff training on legal obligations. The timeline for implementing these measures will be critical, with expectations for initial frameworks to be established by Q1 2024. 6. Public relations and crisis management focus. Following the settlement, there will be a renewed emphasis on public relations strategies for tech companies. As they navigate the fallout from such high-profile cases, firms will invest in crisis management teams and communication strategies to rebuild trust with users and stakeholders. This will be particularly important as public perception of tech companies continues to evolve, influenced by their political affiliations and actions. 7. Long-term financial implications. The financial aspects of the settlement, including the allocation towards Trump's presidential library, may have longer-term implications for Meta's financial health. Stakeholders will be closely watching the impact on Meta's share price and overall market performance, particularly as political dynamics shift with the upcoming elections. Companies may also reassess their financial strategies in light of potential litigation costs and settlements. 8. Expansion of nonprofit and charitable engagements. The allocation of settlement funds to a nonprofit organization signals a trend where corporations may increasingly engage in philanthropic efforts as part of their legal settlements. This could lead to a new norm where companies use settlements not only to resolve disputes but also to enhance their corporate social responsibility profiles. We can anticipate more companies exploring similar avenues to offset negative publicity and enhance community relations. Conclusion. As we move through 2024 and beyond, the implications of the Meta-Trump settlement will ripple across the tech industry, influencing regulatory frameworks, corporate governance, and public perceptions. Companies will need to remain agile and proactive in adapting to these changes, ensuring that they are not only compliant with evolving laws but also responsive to the political climate. The implementation timeline for compliance measures and the strategic decisions made in the wake of this settlement will be critical in shaping the future landscape of social media and its role in American society.